Gundam GQuuuuuX just wrapped up a bit over a week ago, and I want to give my thoughts on it and let you know, is Gundam GQuuuuuX Ballin? Now before we start, I want to let you know I'm not going to be covering any spoiler or plot discussion here. If it's still new, I recommend you go check it out. It's only 12 episodes. Starting off with the good, I was actually hesitant when GQuuuuuX was first announced. I thought it looked kind of dumb. I wasn't a fan of how it looked, so I just kind of ignored it. One day I was looking at the theater. They were showing the prequel movie, so I went with a friend. And yeah, it totally changed my tune on it. I was really excited to watch it. And it didn't let me down. You know, the story and characters to GQuuuuuX are pretty good for the most part, and it's always good to see UC in modern animation. You know, it's a modern Gundam series, which means it's going to have good visuals. The fights are going to be good. In my opinion, the music and the colors were fun. They both fit each other well, and I thought that they were, you know, subtle highlights of the show. But the first thing you'll notice when you watch this is the unit design. They got the dude from Evangelion to design everything, and for the most part, they're pretty solid. There's a couple that I can't wait to get the kit for, but there's also a couple which I'll talk about later that kind of misses. GQuuuuuX is all about big moments. They have several big moments. There was a couple where I had to just, you know, I had to pause the show, stand up, and recognize the GOAT, because they spun it, man. There was a couple times they were spinning it. They had it in their head. They saw it. They spun it. Including there is a top 5 moment in Gundam history, in my opinion. You're gonna have to watch to find out, because again, I won't talk about it here, but it was one of the greatest things I've ever seen in Gundam. But moving on to the negatives, most of the issues stem from the 12 episode length. The story they wanted to tell was way too big for 12 episodes, in my opinion. I think even going, you know, 3 or 4 would probably fix some of your issues. I think personally this is a 2-season deal, and it would have been significantly better if so. Now, one thing to know before starting, they expect you to know UC before you watch this. They introduce characters or things, you know, relating to UC that you either know or they don't really explain it. And I think that kind of hurts it, because if you're a new viewer, you're just going to be lost. And if you don't have anyone to explain it to you, you're kind of out of luck. And the reason the 12 episodes are an issue, a lot of story elements just kind of get completely dropped or rushed through. You know, they'll introduce something and you'll be interested, you want to see where it's going, and all of a sudden it just kind of shifts to the background or fizzles out, and you don't really get a satisfying conclusion to that. This show suffers from what my friend called subplot of the week. You know, instead of, you know, cartoons where you had the monster of the week, you got the subplot of the week. And a lot of times they will introduce something, and then, you know, within 10 minutes they've already resolved it. I feel like things need a lot more time to build up. You know, there's some cool moments that happen that would have been even cooler if they had, you know, maybe another episode or so to really develop some subplots that really could have been big for the show, but again, due to lack of time, they had to shorten them, and I think it suffers. Pacing is another issue. There is no time to breathe in this show. They are one thing to another, to another, to another, to another the entire way through. You know, something will happen to a certain enemy, or a certain plot point will develop, and then, you know, rather than let that sit, they are immediately into the next thing. And it's a big issue, you know, because they'll reveal something or a certain thing will develop, and then rather than give you, you know, an episode to let that sit and really go into it more, again, you know, 5-10 minutes they're on to the next thing. And what really stinks is at some point things start happening with no real explanation. You're gonna get to the end, and if you don't think about it, it's completely fine. You know, you're gonna have a good time. But once you start trying to put it together, you're gonna realize a few things don't really make any sense. They didn't explain what exactly is going on or why certain things are happening. And again, 12 episodes, I feel like just even, you know, 3 or 4 more episodes could have gotten you a little better result. And lastly, I gotta say how they massacred my boy. I said the units were good for the most part. That is aside from Nozaku. Oh my goodness, they gave him the biggest butt. What did they do to him? Oh my days, man. It's terrible. I know it's a long list of negatives, but that's really because what the show did well, it did well. You know, it was solid throughout, and most of the issues, again, are just from not having enough episodes to let things build up properly or sink in. I think if this thing was 24 episodes, you might have a hood classic on your hands, but as it stands, I think Gundam GQuuuuuX is actually a solid watch. I'd say it's slightly to moderately ballin', and honestly, I think it's worth a rewatch. I'm going to watch it again at some point. But for now, those are just my quick thoughts. If you've seen Gundam GQuuuuuX, let me know in the comments what you thought about it. What'd you like, what'd you hate, and why should the animators be strung up from their feet for doing what they did to the Zaku? Thank you everybody for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.